In this Playware video, I would like to talk about adaptivity with the example of how to make a Playware system adapt to the age, the gender, or the gaming platform topology of a game, a multiplayer Playware game, as it could be. Now, adaptivity is interesting because we have talked about earlier about how we see when people are learning, it's at an advantage if they can learn within what we call the zone of proximal development, so that we give people the right level of challenge that fits their competency level. So we want a match so that if we don't give people a task which is too difficult for the level of competency, then they become anxious. Or if we give them a task which is too easy, then they become bored about this. So we want to have the exact right match. And this was formulated by Vygotsky back in the 1930s, as you can see in the quote here, when he talked about how play is important in this aspect as well. But imagine now that we want to give people the right level of challenge matching their level of competency. How can we do that? How can we know for a particular individual that this is the level of competency, and therefore this should be the challenge that we give to this individual? Well, now we can imagine, since we're creating intelligent hardware and software, that it's actually this hardware and software that automatically and dynamically finds the right level of challenge that works within this zone of proximal development, so that the intelligent hardware and software, the artifact, is, so to speak, growing together with the user. When the user becomes more and more competent, the artifact, the Playware, gives higher and higher challenge to the user. So we want to examine this kind of automatically development with our Playware. We will examine this as adaptivity to make the system adapt to the individual user. And you can imagine this in many different aspects. Imagine you are creating another engineering artifact. How can you make sure that this artifact fits the particular end user? You're probably mass producing this engineering product that you're making, but different people may have different modes of interaction. They may have different preferences and so forth. So the question is here, you can think about that. Can you mass produce an intelligent artifact? And then when it comes into the hands of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, then each of these copies of that engineering artifact you've made, they start to adapt, to change slightly to fit that particular user, to fit something for you that you would like to have, and something for me which is slightly different than I would have. So we make the product adapt after we have mass produced it in the same way with the same hardware and software. Then when it comes into the hand of the user, they start to change so that it can fit particular user. And that would be a huge advantage for you if you're to create such a product, because it means that you can mass produce the hardware, the electronics, and so forth, and then in the possibly in the software you make it adapt. But we'll also see that you could also think about, could you imagine the hardware adapt? We have seen in a previous video here how we made this, you remember the Atron robots that could climb on each other to shapeshift. So you could actually imagine in the future you can make technology where it's also the physical hardware that changes, or we can allow the user to change this. Because if we look at here with the tiles, those that became the motor tiles later, Here's a physiotherapist, and he's playing a game on this tile, catching this blinking color on the tile. And he has put on the left side here up in a certain configuration. Now, if we change on the right side to another physical layout on a line, you see he gets another interaction by, in this case, a cardiac patient. Now she's moving duk, 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 to the side. And in the left side, she's moving out to reach with her foot. And you can see as she's changing the physical layout, he's adapting that platform, that hardware piece, that product to fit particular kind of interaction that he as a therapist is interested in. Or he could even do, as we can see on the bottom, to put it up on the wall.
Push.
This case for a stroke patient who's partly paralyzed in the left side. You see, he needs to support the arm when he goes up.
Det bliver ved med at være nederste
he
række.
has to support again. And yes, he reaches this. And again, the reason that he does all this is that it's playful. He wants to play the game. He wants to go on in the game. So he's motivated. But as you can see, changing the physical layout is essentially adapting this to particular interaction patterns, interaction by different patients.
Yes.
This becomes a good tool for a therapist because he can easily adapt to individuals with their different levels, in this case of physical competences, in his physical rehabilitation.
Ja, og så må du bruge højre.
So in general, we want to look at here adaptivity as how we can automatically and dynamically allow this zone of proximal development to follow the individual user with respect to her competences, and thereby it can essentially act as a scaffolding that we little by little climb the ladder up to a higher and higher level. And we'll take the first example here with some modular Playware, some of the very first prototypes of the interactive tiles, the modular tiles, those that were made for playgrounds. So in this case, we'll look at it for children. But in general, give us this question: can the individual child's behavior first be recognized by such a product? And then if it can, then we can ask, can the product then adapt in order to increase or maintain the overall level of interest or fun or whatever we're looking for? So please look at the figure here. So this is typically what we'll do here is that we have the product that somebody is interacting with, a human user is interacting with one or more users, and we observe what interaction is happening. Since we have intelligent hardware and software, since we have electronics inside the product, we can use that to make observations on how are the user interacting with this product. And then, having observed that, we put that into a system that tries to classify what kind of interaction is this, what kind of user is this, or whatever classification we would like to do. And then, having such a classification, now we know from the classification what kind of interaction is this or what kind of user is this. Then we have a software that allows the system to adapt to that kind of user, that kind of interaction. So the system to do here we can look at how to do the observation and the classification. In this case, we take the example of using an artificial neural network. if you're not too confident about artificial neural networks, there is a small video, an introduction on neural networks that you should watch. But here we have a simple feed-forward 3 layers neural network. As the input, we get observations from this interactive playground, this tiles laid out as a playground. We have this input, they go through the network, through the hidden layer to the output, and the output should provide the classification. So as input, we have things like how hard are the user pressing the tile, what is the distance from the previous step to this step, what is the time from the previous step to this step, what is the direction of movement, what is the current color that he or she is pressing on, and what are the neighboring tiles, are they lighted up or not, and which color. So this is being fed in, this is input that our system can immediately read, because we have the electronics inside the tiles. So having that is being put forward in the network, and then it should produce an output telling, classifying what kind of user interaction is this particular one. Is this a younger or an older child playing? Is it someone who's playing or is not playing? And see, or is somebody playing fast or somebody playing slow, or in a continuous manner or discontinuous manner. And actually, later on, we also make a system where we have a couple of extra neurons here that says whether it's individuals or groups playing together, if it's more people playing at the same time. So then what we do here is that we take a number of children. They come and play the game on the platform that we saw before. I just jumped back to this platform here. They come and play on these tiles. While they're playing, we are observing what are they playing or not playing? Are they playing fast or are they playing slow? So we can make a training set. So in this case, we have 30 children playing on the playground while we are observing these things. We build up a training set for this. And then afterwards, while we're training this neural network for many iterations, and then afterwards, we test whether what the neural network has learned is actually a correct classification with new children who didn't play on the playground before. And what we find is actually that the classification into this category is correct in 97% of the times. So we can look at it like this here. So what we see with this graphs down here is how the network is responding, with how high percentage it's responding with one category or some of the other categories. And here we see that this dark one for the first 3 time sections here is the one with the highest score. So we say the one with the highest score is the one that's being responded with. So we just make a threshold there for that. So this is a younger not playing in a discontinuous manner. And then after that, you see that the other one is taking over to be the one scoring the highest until one point here where it's not, and then it becomes that one again. And that one is the younger playing slow. So in the beginning, it looks like a younger child not playing, and then after a short while, it looks like it's a younger child playing in a slow manner. And now we compare that with video observations and somebody observing this and classifying up here in this table up here, a user has classified for each time period, 1 to 9, what is it that he or she sees on the video, what kind of a category is that? And we see that it matches perfectly with what the neural network is answering. And so in this case, we get a 100% correspondence between what a person looking at the video is responding in terms of classification and what the neural network is responding. So it seems to be a very reliable way of classifying the user. And then having that classification, as we say, next step is to adapt the game. And here, just to make it simple, this is the game we'll see is what we call an adaptive box smasher. So in this case, we say that when we have these categories, we saw the 8 ones before, and then we have 2 extra ones, the group playing cooperatively and group playing in a competing manner. But if we see this, what we say in the game, if it's a younger playing fast, then the speed should be increased. If it's a younger playing in a slow manner, then the software decreases the speed. So very, very simple. If it's an older playing fast, then we increase the speed even more, and we increase the distance between the box where the user has to jump, and so forth. So you can say this is a very simple way of adapting in terms of do we increase, decrease the speed? Do we change the distance between these? Do we make, in some cases, a following strategy and so forth? So we can see it here on a small video that here is a, now at this time, the neural network is running and it's using some time, the first time window to start observing and then classifying. Now it has classified that this is a younger, not playing in a continuous manner. So it starts making this following strategy. You can see the dots are moving around the player in order to lure him into actually start playing the game. In another video here, you'll see these are more playing at the same time, trying to smash. So now the system is classifying this as a group playing cooperatively, and now there are more bugs appearing. You see there are 5 bugs now. Before we had only 3 bugs in there, and now we have 5 bugs that they have to smash. So it becomes more difficult for them. It becomes more fun for them. A further example here, we have, you can almost see that by the size that this is an older child, and he's playing fast. The neural network is using this time now to try to classify her. Now she's smashing the box. Now, after a while, it starts adapting the game. So the box will appear further and further away from her. She has to move more towards the corners. So this way, we are adapting the game in a simple manner here. So we can do this kind of adaptation in different ways. We can think of, if it's a single person playing the game, we could call this serial adaptation. If it's 2 persons playing together cooperatively, we can call this a parallel adaptation. Or if it's competitive, we can bias this to the individual user. So we call this biasing. We have these 3 different kinds: serial adaptation, parallel adaptation, and biasing. Now we can look more into this with different examples. In this case, we take the example of, imagine this for stroke patients, and the therapist in the video is showing a certain sequence. So she wants this kind of game, and then the game starts. And it moves up and down, and the patient has to touch this. So the patient has to hit. And you see, little by little, it goes faster and faster. Every time there is a hit, it goes faster. Every time there is a miss, it goes slower. This was wrong, so that was a miss. This was wrong, and now it's slower again. This was wrong, so now it's slow again. Correct, so it's a little faster. Correct, so it's faster again. Correct, so it's even faster. Maybe now it's too fast for the user. No, it was okay, but then the game finished. So you can see like this, we can adjust the game. First, the therapist is actually showing the sequence. So she is deciding how to do this. And then the user is trying to hit, and the speed is trying to adapt to the particular user. So you can imagine this even for multiplayers, or in this case, if you're using two hands. You remember often stroke patients may be partly paralyzed in one side, maybe slower on one side than the other. So we can imagine it's a user using his two hands, or it can be two different people like here. One is fast and one is slow. So look at the video, you see that one on one side, one is very fast, and on the other side, one is slow. So you see the countdown time while these are counting down is fast on the left side on the video, and it's slow on the right side of the video, because on the right side is the slow user. Even if it's the exact same game, it's the exact same software running on this whole platform, then it's adapting to the level of the user. Remember the zone of proximal development. So it's adapting to that particular user. So the way we can do this is actually fairly simple, and it's a thing you can easily do yourself. And I encourage you to try this out. So let me just give you an example with the one we saw before. In this case, it was a game. We just here we can term this color timer. So when it starts, it takes 6 seconds to count down. You saw this the lights counting the time that you have to hit. Now each time it takes for a LED to go around, we have 8 LEDs. Each is 750 milliseconds. So what we do is essentially to say that if you hit below or above half the countdown time, half of the counting time, meaning initially 3 seconds. If you're faster than 3 seconds to begin with, then next time the time will be a little slow, little faster. If you're slower than the 3 seconds, then it will be a little slower next time. So you'll have more time next time. So we simply say, if you're faster than half the time, then it becomes faster. If you're slower than half the time, then it becomes slower. And we continue to do that for each single cycle. So little by little, it goes faster and faster and faster if you hit correctly and you hit fast. So that's a very, very simple way to do an adaptive game, but it's very effective. I say I encourage you to try this out. And you can even imagine we can do this with like a pong game. You remember the old, one of the first computer games where you have this ping pong game with a ball going and you have to steer one and the other one. So we're making that with 2 people, one standing on one side. Here it's up and down, one standing on the top playing back and forth, and one playing on the bottom playing back and forth. And then we have the LED lights going up and down through here, and then you have to hit it when it comes up to you. So now if we do this adaptive, if there's a fast player up here and a very slow player down here, then we can say that the ping pong ball, when it comes up here, it goes very fast, and as it goes down here, it goes slower and slower and comes down, and it goes fast, goes slow down here, and it goes up again, and it goes fast up here to the fast player. So these are ways that we can imagine doing a biasing in these games. So let me just show you a few examples of the measurements of this. If we take a game like the one that counts down the time, and we look at what is the countdown time after people have played this for a certain period of time, after they have hit, in this case, hit 10 times, that gives us an idea about what is their reaction time in this game. And we can do this, for instance, here we have, we're looking at female playing the games, and looking at out at the end here, what are the average times if there's one tile light up at a time, two tiles light up, three tiles or four tiles light up that you have to hit at the same time. We can look at how is this for male and female. I'll go more into details on that in the next one here. But just to say, we can see that now over time it starts out that the countdown time is 6 seconds, and it quickly decreases down to something between 1 and 1.7 seconds or so in this case here. Now this was for the hands. We can take the exact same game and play for feet, and we can see that the time also quickly goes down and becomes something between 1 and 2 seconds. Now, if we take this here, what we do here is we look at many individuals. So we take a number of adult women, a number of adult male, a number of young children, boys, and a number of girls. And then we average their scores, their countdown time, which is the one that we're interested in. And then we can look at it if they're on the top. Once is for many of them, and here's an average. So let's look at the ones on the right side here. For hitting one tile lit at a time, two tiles lit, three tiles lit at a time. Let's look at this one in the lower right corner here, because that's the most visually clear one for us to give to get this idea of what is happening. So we see that they all, on average, they start, of course, with the 6 seconds, and then it decreases down to what we have seen before. We saw with we're talking about the women. It was about a little, on average, a little below 2 seconds. The males are faster. They're on average around 1.3 or so, and then we can see the boys are maybe 3 point something, and the girls a little slower again. So the interesting thing here is that we can see how the system, it's the exact same hardware, the exact same software. We just have different people to play it, but the game is adapting to the age and the gender. And there are differences in there. There's a very clear difference, you can say maybe obviously, between young children and adult users, and actually there's also between the male and the female here. So we can see that it's adapting to that, and we can also see that it is important that the system is adapting, because if we want to have to give people, remember the zone of proximal development, if we want people to get the right challenge, level of challenge, so that it's interesting and fun for them in this game, then we need the game to adjust. If we just have designed beforehand that it should be the countdown time should be like for the girls here around 4 seconds, then obviously the adult male players, they would find this very boring, because their average countdown time is maybe 1.2 seconds and not 4 seconds. So they would find this very boring game. which but then on the other hand, if we were to design this only with our engineering students, young males, they would have on average, probably a countdown time of 1.2, 1.3, 1.4 seconds to find this fun. So then we would have designed our product with this timing, 1.3 seconds, this countdown time, and we would later find that all the young players, the children, they would just not like this game. They will probably feel a bit anxious, and why can't I do this? Because it would be too fast for them. Because their average timing is 3.5 to 4 seconds. So this shows quite well why we need the system to adapt to this to the level of competency of the user. So we can do that also actually with multiplayer games. As we saw, I explained this one with the ping pong game before. So actually we do that in the ping pong game here. And what you see is again similar to the countdown time over the game. So we play, in this case, 4 rounds of the game. It always starts with the timing of, in this case, 500 milliseconds, and then it drops down, and it drops fast for one player here, and it drops slower for the other player here, and then we have a new round, and it again drops fast for one player. You see, it's always the one player that it drops because he's faster than the other player, which goes to another level. So this thing about a multiplayer game, we went further with designing other games. In this case, it's kind of like whack-a-mole. So you see the two players trying to play the whack-a-mole, two different colors, and then there's a bonus tile as well, the one with two different colors. But essentially, let's look at the two different colors that they're trying to hit. And in this case, we also do like the countdown before. We say that we make it even simpler. We have, as you see on the left, there's the lookup table, which says that if you hit while there's still 8 LEDs turned on, then we decrease the countdown time by 80 milliseconds. If you hit while there's 6 tiles lit up, then it remains 0, and that's between 6 and 3 that lights up. If you hit it while there's only 1 left, then it increases the time by 20. So by this simple way, you can see this is very simple. By this simple way, let me repeat the video here. By this simple way of a simple lookup table to increase and decrease the timing, you get this fairly fascinating adaptive game to this two players. You see the two young girls playing the game here on the video, and you can see that there may be different countdown time for them while they're playing the game. So they're both having fun, even if they may be at two different levels. Now we can take this even further and look at more data on this. So what we did here was we took children 6 to 8 years old, just 3 boys and 3 girls, and we took some adult players 20 to 35 years old, 10 males and 10 females, and they played 60 seconds per game. They played in both single player mode and in 2-player games, as you can see the 2-player on the video, and as we saw before. And then they played on different layouts of tiles, different sizes. As you see on the video running now, a 2x3. The one we saw on the previous video was a 2x4 tiles. And then there's the layout that we have here on the right side video, a 4x4 layout of tiles. So we wanted to investigate how does the game adapt when the tiles are laid out in different platform topologies, when there are different players, male and female, young and adult players. And then we did some statistical significance analysis to look at if there are some significant differences with these things, different topologies, different age groups, different gender. So what we find in this case is similar to what we have seen in the other games. In this case, we look at male versus female. We see also here that the males are slightly faster than the female. There's a as we do the analysis, the statistical analysis here, we see that there's a significant difference in reaction time. We can look at adult versus children, and we see that the adults are much faster than the children. Again, there's the statistical significant difference here, much larger than we saw before, between the adult and the children on this 2x3 platform. We can, which is interesting here, so we can look at the different platforms, and you can say maybe obviously, since you have to move further away, there's a significant difference between when you play the reaction time for hitting a tile when you're on the larger or the smaller platform. But nevertheless, important to know that it is significant, this difference. But we can also look at fast versus slow players. There are some that are fast and some that are slow, and we can classify this now as significantly different from each other. In this case, for the adults players. And now the interesting thing is, since we can, let me just go back to this. Sorry, if we take those that we classify here, we can see that they are fast, and those who are slow, we can look at them. How do they find the game? Do the slow ones think the game is fun at all? Do the fast one thinks that it's fun, or is it just boring because they're too competent? Do the slow ones find it fun, or do they become anxious because they are too slow to play the game? But now, since this is an adaptive game, what should happen is actually that it should fit to these different categories of players. And what we find, if we give them a questionnaire, so this is what we do, we give all players a questionnaire, and then we look at all of them. How do they respond to, do they find the game boring or fun? Do they find, how do they find the speed? How do they find the difficulty level? And then we can see the average score that they're scoring here on this different questions. But what is really, really interesting is that there's no difference in the answers between the fast and the slow players. There's no significant difference in the scores that they're giving the games in terms of how fun it is, how appropriate the speed is, how appropriate the difficulty level is. And this is interesting, that we see that there is a statistical significant difference in their reaction speed, but these players with different reaction speed, they find that the adaptive game is equally fun and challenging, despite whether they are fast or slow. So we have actually obtained by the adaptivity to make one game which fits, in this case, everybody, we can see, because that it adapts to the individual player. So what we can then also take, we can take, for instance, the adult versus children in multiplayer games. So take the adult and see that if they're playing against the kids, the adult ones will play much faster than the kids, but they will have equal fun. So imagine this: if you are a parent, you can go to out to the playground and you can play games with your child on the playground, but often you'll see it will be you may be laughing, but it's not really that you're having fun. You're kind of pretending to have fun in order to please the child, so to speak. But here it's different, because here, if you play on this kind of playground, this kind of interactive, adaptive game, then you will have fun, because the game is adapting to your skill as the adult, and it's adapting to the skill of your child. So both will have equal level of fun, even if there's such a dramatic difference in level of competency. This is very strong. So we can create these multiplayer games where everybody is having fun, is everybody is being challenged, everybody is truly enjoying themselves and having fun. So we can take this into multiplayer games and use that to create social playware. So playware that mediates social interaction, as we heard before, between the adult, the parent, and the child, between players of different levels. That's important. For instance, here we take it um, to uh, to children's hospital, and these are different patients, children. When they come to the children's hospital, they feel isolated. They feel that they are lonely. They're without their classmates, and they are fearful of what is going on. And then we put in the playware to give them some joy, and have games that are adaptive, so that even different, you can see here a smaller child and a larger child, they can actually have fun together and play together, because the game is adapting to their skills. This is important because people have different ways of being motivated, and we'll return to this in a later video about the classification of personalities and so forth. So I'll not go into much details here, but just say this is important because people are motivated from different things. Some would like the intrinsic motivation, some are motivated by extrinsic things, like things coming from the outside. But here we are mainly looking at how can we make the technology to provide um, a, uh, a means for people to interact just out of their own free will, out of their own pure enjoyment, from the intrinsic motivation, to go into the flow. And this is essentially the flow zone that you have heard about. But here you can see this is more or less exactly what we have talked about when we're talking about the zone of proximal development. When you're in flow, you're in the zone of proximal development. And that's why we're creating the adaptive technology, is to make you fit into this flow zone. And with this, I'll just summarize and say we have seen that we can create adaptive playware, so that the technology, even we can think of the mass-produced product, it it becomes able to adapt when it's in the hands of the user, in the hands of the therapist or the nurse or the individual player, to adapt to the age and the gender. The platform topology is adaptive, as we have seen. They can lay out different patterns, and even if they lay out different, the software can adapt to that, and it adapts to the individual player, which is important. Even if you think of this for rehabilitation, people have different levels of competency, also different intervention areas that they should match in a fast manner. So this is important, that we can, with intelligent hardware and software, this gives us the possibility to create adaptivity, both in, as we see with the modularity in the physical shapes, the physical layout, and so forth, and with the software, with the games while they're running. So I encourage you to try this out, and even if you try out some of these simple mechanisms that I've shown today, you will feel how effective it is. So try and implement that with something, and test it out with yourself and with other users, and you'll see quickly that it's really highly effective. So I hope you can learn from this adaptive playware to do something useful for your future uh, engineering and software projects, and for your future products, so that it can help everybody around. So have fun with this.